Hello, and welcome to the EMC Tech Series Vplex for VMware. My name's Paul Danahy. I work in the Global Product Sales Organization, and I'm responsible for the Vplex product family.
And my name's Ollie Shorey, and I'm a Corporate Systems Engineer in the Vplex team.
Vplex is a really interesting technology, and it can provide a lot of value to the VMware environment. Vplex, in its basic essence, enables people to do what used to be done in a single data center over distance. Vplex enables people to put data at two locations, yet make it accessible simultaneously at both of those locations. I'm going to have Ollie give us a little bit of a description of what our demo is going to be all about today.
Yeah, before we do that, let's have a look at three key VMware technologies. We're going to look at vMotion, HA, and fault tolerance. And we're just going to bring everyone up to speed within a single data center of how these work. And then we're going to look at how we can distribute these and leverage distance with Vplex, okay, and show where the benefits are. So if we start off with vMotion, so in its simplest form, you'll see from the graphic, we have a two-node HA cluster, ESX HA cluster, that connects to a single storage array. And you'll see we have two VMs. One of those VMs, VM1, is just enabled by HA, and the second one has fault tolerance enabled. The first one, what I can do is I can vMotion from one physical ESX server to another, back again and forward again, using technologies such as DRS to load balance across my machines in the data center. That's pretty cool stuff. However, what happens if I have an ESX failure? Whether that's a planned outage on that ESX server, if I want to do planned maintenance, or an unplanned outage. Well, if I show a failure here of that ESX server, both of those VMs are going to cease to exist on that physical hardware. The second VM, however, is fault tolerance, so that's going to automatically just continue without any interruption on the second ESX server. The first VM, however, will automatically restart because it's highly available. Okay. The key thing here is, if a failure happens within your data center, no one really cares too much about that because things automatically happen and the business stays online.
So Ollie, the key conversation here is that most people look at these technologies from the vantage point of a single data center and haven't really thought about how they could leverage vMotion, HA, and fault tolerance literally over distance, correct?
Yeah, correct. And one of the next shot on the graphic here shows if we have a complete site failure, those three technologies, lose their value because they're within the data center and that very data center has now been lost. But as we're saying, by leveraging Vplex, we can now leverage these technologies over distance, which gives us a whole new set of capability. So why don't I show you my second slide. So here you can see, we have the same two VMs. And in fact, we've now called the top VM the Palazzo VM and the bottom one the Venetian VM. The Venetian VM is fault tolerance, but now that's sat on top of a Vplex Metro environment. So that's a distributed HA cluster. Okay, this gives us continuous availability over distance. Okay, whereas the Palazzo VM is high availability over distance. Okay, so again, because nothing different in VMware, right? It sees a single disk over distance, the unique capabilities of Vplex, active storage, multiple locations simultaneously. We can now vMotion that from one ESX server over distance to a completely different data center. So this starts enabling use cases not just for ESX server maintenance, but what if I want to take a data center maintenance outage window? I can now vMotion all of my VMs to another location, bring down my data center, and then vMotion them back. But now let's look at a data center failure, okay? If I show here, what now if we have a site outage? Well, this is rather interesting because now we have the other two technologies enabled in VMware, HA and fault tolerance. So again, the fault tolerance one, that's continuous availability. That's going to continue running uninterrupted at the remote location. It's called the secondary VM, okay? Whereas the first VM is going to restart. Again, it's going to be completely automatic. So you're going to want to put your top tier of mission critical applications on this type of technology to give you that extra level of protection over distance.
Because I think one of the things that people deal with, Ollie, is that they make a decision whether they're going to fail over to a second site today because there's oftentimes a penalty to them for doing that actual fail back once they want to go back to their primary data center. With Vplex, that idea of primary, secondary data center almost gets erased because both data centers are seeing exactly the same information at the same time.
Exactly. In fact, you can almost think of it as taking two different data centers and making one logical data center over distance.
Great.
And then you can use the assets in both data centers, which obviously brings much value.
Yeah, great. So I think now is probably a good time to get a look at the demo and maybe gain better perspective of how this all can provide value to the end user.
Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so here we've logged onto the Vplex and we can see that we have two locations, one on the left, one on the right, and these are active Vplex Metro environment. So we can have simultaneous access to the same disk. And these are protected by an external arbitrator called Vplex Witness that sits in a third location. This gives us a storage continuous availability with Vplex Metro. So now we're showing vSphere, and here we have two ESX servers. And on those two ESX servers, we also have two VMs. And in this case, both of those VMs are running at the Palazzo location, okay? Whereas a secondary VM, one of them is running at the Venetian, which is controlled by fault tolerance. And as we can see here, this bottom VM is protected by fault tolerance, whereas the top VM is protected by HA. And these are running canned video streams of footage from casinos. And what we're going to show is a failure at one of the data centers where they're both running. And you can see the countdown, 3, 2, 1. So that data center has now failed. And you'll notice the top VM stops because it didn't have a secondary. It was controlled or protected by HA. Whereas the bottom VM is protected by fault tolerance. So this is continuous availability over distance now. Because the Vplex, even though we killed it in one of the sites, remained online in the secondary site, enabling the secondary VM to continue. Okay? So if we wait a few seconds longer, eventually the top VM, that's going to do a HA restart completely automatically. So vSphere clustering is going to figure out what's happened, and it's going to automatically restart that. No business decision, no manual decision in the remaining location. And we can see now that that's starting to spawn up. Okay? And you'll see that'll begin to boot and continue to boot. So now, if we go back and have a look at the Vplex GUI, we can see exactly what's failed. And on the left here, you'll see that that Vplex cluster has now been taken offline, and that's exactly what we did. We failed that Vplex cluster, okay? But because of the witness and the remote cluster being active, you'll see on the right-hand side here that's available and online. So there was no failover, there was no business decision. The Vplex simply remained online at the remaining location, okay? So if we now cut back to vCenter, we can see that that top VM has now completely respawned and it's running. So it did have an interruption as it restarted, but the restart was completely automatic. Okay, no business decision.
So I think that's really interesting, Ollie. The extension of technology that VMware developed with the, I expect, intent of using within a single data center, the capabilities that Vplex brings to enable that technology to get outside the data center, and as you illustrated there, the fact that I can actually recover or continue to operate my environment at the secondary site automatically, non-stop.
Yeah, and what's also good, it does simplify as well, because when you deploy these technologies within the data center, they're no more complex to deploy across data centers in a distributed fashion. So it enables all these business benefits over distance now. So not only do we have this availability concept for your most mission-critical applications, we've also got the ability to use that remote location actively. So we can start now load balancing across data centers. Think of it as taking two different data centers and aggregating them into one logical data center.
Yeah, so you get the load balancing benefit, you get the utilization benefit, you get that high availability benefit, that fault tolerance benefit, you get the application mobility benefit all through Vplex with VMware. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and if you want to know more, there's a white paper on this subject on the EMC Vplex page under the Resources tab.
That's great. Okay, thanks, Ollie. And thank you all for participating in this Vplex for VMware EMC Tech Series. Have a great day.